Patton family was living just outside of Atlanta, Georgia. William Patton is 36 years old and is the owner of the plantation. Reggie Patton is 72 years old and is the father of William Patton. Richard Patton is the oldest son of William and is 14. Michael is 2 years younger than Richard. Gabriel is a favorite slave and is 14 years old. The Civil War was the bloodiest war in the history of the United States. It ripped families apart, split a nation in two, and killed or wounded more than 600,000 soldiers, by far the most in any war. Nearly 2% of the total population of the U.S. was killed. Slavery was a key issue in this war over states' rights versus federal rights. There was a huge compromise, is 1850, which did 7 different things. California was admitted into the Union as a free state. Texas loses territory to New Mexico and gets paid $10 million for the territory it lost. Utah and Mexico territories are able to have slavery if they want. Washington, D.C. outlawed slave trade, but you can still own slaves. The Fugitive Slave Act is reinforced, which makes it so that escaped slaves can be sent back to their owners. Fort Sumter was the ignition of the war. It was a Southern Carolinian fort. It was a bloodless battle that sparked the Civil War. I heard that there was a skirmish at Fort Sumter up in South Carolina. Apparently some rebels were trying to take Fort Sumter. The rebels sat up there for a long time and were firing upon the base. Master says this is great, but I really wonder about this. The U.S. had to surrender to the rebels, but nobody was killed. Abraham Lincoln was elected in 1860 with 39.7% of the vote, or 1,865,908 votes. He was a Republican nominee for the President of the United States. Before he was elected as president, he was a member of the U.S. House of Representatives from the 7th District of Illinois. Because of his election, many states seceded. Just after he was elected as president, this was critical because he would later lead a dispute which would start the American Civil War. He was considered a moderate Republican at the time. Gettysburg was the bloodiest fight of the Civil War. Starting from July 1st to the 3rd, 1863, it lasted for 3 long days and killed more than 50,000 men. It may be the most famous battle of the whole war. Robert E. Lee wanted to invade the north of the U.S., like Harrisburg. However, Union forces intercepted them before they could get there. This battle resulted in a Union victory and is considered the turning point in the war.
November 22nd, 1863. Dear Journal, November 19th, the President Abraham Lincoln gave his so-called Gettysburg Address. Apparently it was some big whoop for the North. He gave the address after defeating us in Gettysburg. In the newspaper, it sounded very short. They said it only lasted 2 minutes. I am losing faith in our Confederate Army. All we can ever do now is pray.
1864 had a lot of events. After the defeat of the Confederate forces at Chattanooga on March 2nd, 1864, Ulysses S. Grant was appointed as a major general by Abraham Lincoln. By November 1864, President Lincoln had already been elected for a second term. He won 55% of the popular vote. However, many states were not present for the election because they had seceded from the Union. Instead of running as a Republican this time, he instead ran as a Union Party candidate, which was a party that he had joined. The Civil War took a great toll on home life. An estimated 10% of Northern males of serving age were killed, and 30% of white Southern men of serving age were killed. Abraham Lincoln was shot, and that day changed the nation forever. There's a biggest amount of talking going around. The president was shot when he was at a theater. A man had gone in when his bodyguard had left. He was there with his wife, and I hear there was a lot of ruckus in their theater after the president was shot. After the war, there were 3 amendments passed. These were especially aimed at giving African Americans equal rights. The first of these, the 13th Amendment, abolished slavery. The 14th Amendment made it so that all people born in the United States were citizens. The 15th Amendment made it so that the right to vote would not be denied based on your race or color of your skin. The 13th Amendment hereby states that everyone is equal and that there is no slavery in America. This means that things will be very different from now on. Things will be a lot slower now that we have less people. The Republicans are trying to make it so that the black citizens can vote, but I have a feeling that the newly rejoined states will try to make it so that they can deny the right to vote to black citizens.
Go. Will you tell me about the annexation of California?
Alright, well, California was annexed in 1846. Since it was very big at the time, it was considered both in the North and the South. And the North wanted it to be a total free state, but the South felt like since the dividing line went straight between it, it should have been two states, one free, one slave, or one state with two parts. But since it was admitted into the Union as a complete free state, the South got pretty angry with that.
Okay, tell me about the views of Robert E. Lee.
Well, he was very torn at this time because his hometown was in Virginia, and that's where he was born and raised, and that Virginia went with the South. So he was thinking he was going to lean towards the South, but then the president offered him a position as the head general of the North. So he was very torn, but he went with his gut instinct and fought for the South. So, Phil, tell me about the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments.
Alright, the 13th Amendment abolished slavery. That was passed in 1865. The 14th Amendment was anybody born in the U.S. is a legal U.S. citizen. That was passed in 1866. And the 15th Amendment was all men, no matter the race, are allowed to vote. That was passed in 1869.